All right, so getting a lot of questions recently about the best and the worst neighborhoods around Denver in 2024. Really excited to share these with you guys. Stay tuned. All right, so as I said, today is going to be all about the best and the worst neighborhoods, according to me, Adam Lang. I'm a 40-year local here in Denver, Colorado, and I have a lot of insight when it comes to this topic. So really excited to share it with you. But before we get started, really quickly, my name is Adam, licensed realtor here in Denver, Colorado. Make videos like this every week, and I'd love for you to be receiving all of them when they get published. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. My phone number, my email, all that info is down below. So let's go ahead and get started. My best and worst neighborhoods of 2024. All right, so today we're gonna be doing 4 neighborhoods in total. A best, a worst, and another best, and then a final worst neighborhood. So 4 neighborhoods in total. Gonna start though with my best neighborhood. And this is one that I have a lot of personal experience with because it's one of the neighborhoods that I actually spent a lot of my time growing up. It's Wheat Ridge, Colorado. So I have a lot of reasons why I put Wheat Ridge as one of the best neighborhoods for 2024 and beyond. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is just that it's one of these areas within Denver that's not quite caught up in popularity to all of the neighborhoods that are surrounding it. So obviously you've heard of areas, or most likely you have, of places like Highlands, Sloan's Lake, even Sunnyside is another up and coming one right now. All these areas are just so incredibly popular, which is driving the prices through the roof. And it's just very difficult for most home buyers to find a place that really fits their needs. What I love about Wheat Ridge is it's going to get there. It's going to be just like these other areas, yet you're a little bit earlier to the party. And I think you have a lot of opportunity when it comes to Wheat Ridge real estate. So a few reasons why I love it so much. Like I said, I grew up in this area, but for one, it's got great access to all the major highways and roads to get you anywhere you need to go. It's close to I-25, I-70, Highway 6, and even Highway 76 in case you're trying to get up a little bit north of town. Also, since it's on the west side of town, just a little bit west of Sloan's Lake and Highlands, you have a lot of easy access to the mountains. In fact, I would say as it gets more and more congested in Denver, those times that it takes you just even to get from the east side of town to the west side to get up to I-70 and up into the foothills, you know, what used to maybe take 10 to 15 minutes, now on average could take you 30 minutes. So being on the west side of town in a place like Wheat Ridge, you just have so much easier access to the mountains. And let's face it, a lot of people move to Colorado and to Denver to get up there as much as they can and just to enjoy the best part about Colorado, which is the mountains that are right out our back door. When I talk a little bit more about just the growth and how Wheat Ridge is, going to be what Highlands and some of these areas currently are, you can already see this happening. In fact, I just sold a house in Wheat Ridge about a month ago, and one of the cross streets that it was very close to was 38th Avenue and Wadsworth. And this area used to be just a normal intersection, pretty close to where I grew up. But nowadays, man, I'll tell you what, there is so much construction and development going on just in that one intersection. It's just, again, a sign of what's to come and what currently is already happening, and just that sign of growth and where Wheat Ridge is going to be here in a few years. So I think Wheat Ridge has a ton of potential and a lot of opportunity, especially for buyers that are looking for a home where they can put in some sweat equity. If you're a little bit more motivated, maybe you're a little bit younger and still have a little bit more of an ability to get out and get your hands dirty and do some of these improvements yourself, I think Wheat Ridge, without a doubt, is one of the best areas to put a little bit more of a focus on because of this. So a lot of the homes in Wheat Ridge, they were built, in the 40s and 50s, a lot of ranch style homes, a lot of like 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or maybe a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, maybe 3-bedroom, 2-bath, those type of homes. A lot of ranch styles. A lot of people that are currently owning these homes are getting a little bit older in age. And a lot of the people that I'm seeing right now, a lot of my clients and just the feedback I've received a lot from this part of town is these types of people are currently selling their homes, looking for that next chapter in their life, or they're going to be going into a retirement home, or maybe just looking to downsize. And this is providing a lot of older homes that have not yet been renovated as opportunities for new buyers to come in and get that entry point for the entry price point a little bit lower and be able to at least buy something where over time they can start to improve it themselves and make it exactly how they want it to be. So, a lot of other parts of town, this is very hard to do. And I think with Wheat Ridge, it's one of the last remaining neighborhoods, including, I would say, Lakewood and parts of Arvada on this western side of Denver, where you have a lot of opportunity to do this kind of stuff. So if that might be you, somebody that's looking for a place that has the ability to get your hands dirty and get some sweat equity, build up some equity and build up some more value into your property through doing a lot of the work yourself, or at least kind of staggering it over a period of time, this is a great area to focus on. All right, so now I'm gonna be talking about one of my worst neighborhoods, and I hate to say the word worst because there are still great parts of this neighborhood. However, I'm putting it as a worst for today's video, and this is gonna be Westminster. So Westminster is located a little bit north of Wheat Ridge, and the reason I put it as one of the worst neighborhoods is a couple things. And I might get some mixed feedback on this, so if you have personal opinions on this, make sure you guys comment down below. But my first reason why I think Westminster is just not nearly as desirable as other parts of town is just the congestion and just, I hate to use the word homelessness, but just a lot of riffraff and just, tents and I feel very, I feel for these people and I want them to, get their lives to improve, but there's just a lot of that kind of stuff going on, especially, in the last few months. Out of all the different areas in Denver, I'm driving all around Denver on a daily basis, and this is one of the areas that I just always notice this much more than other parts of town. And I think one reason for this is that Westminster is kind of the central hub of two very major thoroughfares. Highway 36, that's what you take to get up to Boulder, and also I-25, which is our main north-south highway that goes right through Denver. So I think that one of the things is just how we have that major intersection in Westminster. This just draws a lot of, again, homelessness, panhandling, people begging for money on the street corners, just literally anywhere you walk in a lot of the areas in Westminster, anywhere you go, you're gonna just see this on pretty much every single intersection. And what this also contributes to is just trash and just doesn't feel nearly as upkept as other parts of Denver. Also, if you're a family, I'm not gonna recommend any specific school districts, but if you check out websites like niche.com, you can see that, Westminster is always pretty low in the ratings when it comes to public schools. So that's just another thing to consider if you are at that point of your life and you have potentially some kids that are either getting ready to or are currently in the public school system. This is also an area that continues to get busier and busier by the year, and these commuting times of day, the rush hour traffic times, 8 to 9:30 in the morning and 3:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon. There are parts of Westminster where it is just a nightmare. It's just an area that I always try and avoid if I can, just because of the backup of traffic that is inevitably going to happen if you're on, again, Highway 36, I-25, or even just some of the main regular roads like Federal, Sheridan, just some of these roads, you're just stuck in traffic. Every single stoplight, you're waiting, and it just takes forever to get anywhere. And, that gets old quick. And when I think about myself and what I value and where I would like to live, I think that's pretty high on my list. Just, the value of time. If you're able to save an hour of your day by not sitting in traffic and dealing with that on a daily basis, in my opinion, that's pretty high priority and something definitely to at least consider when, looking at different parts of Denver to live. So keep that in mind. However, I will lastly say this though, even though this is, one of my worst neighborhoods of Denver, Westminster does still have some great stuff going on. I spent a lot of time in Westminster a few years back when I was managing a lot of apartment communities. And that's one thing you are going to find in Westminster is a lot of multifamily apartments and just a lot more of that type of housing. There's good and bads to that. One good is obviously it's providing a lot of housing for people in that area. One downside to that though is, that is also a very congested part of the city because there's just so many people living in a very small footprint. So a lot of traffic, just keep that in mind too. All right, so now going into my second best neighborhood in Denver is going to be Littleton. Littleton is an area that I have recently spent a lot of time. In fact, this is where I currently live, and I just love the southern part of Denver more and more every single month that I'm down here. There are so many things that I never even considered when coming to this part of Denver, and now they're pretty much non-negotiables for me. And what I mean by this is that there's just certain things that when you get to Littleton, you just realize just the weight kind of comes off your shoulders. It's not nearly as congested. There's not nearly as much just kind of anxiety when it comes to just cars everywhere and traffic and all that stuff that I was talking about with Westminster. You don't have nearly as much of that in Littleton. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still definitely parts of Littleton that have traffic and have the same stuff that we've been talking about. However, I think though, as a whole, Littleton is very high on the list when it comes to just the convenience of lots and lots of shopping and retail centers and restaurants that you're not going to have to deal with all this traffic to get to. In fact, pretty much anywhere you live in Littleton, I guarantee within 1 to 2 miles, you're going to have a pretty awesome retail shopping center full of, the grocery stores, a few restaurants, all that kind of stuff. There's just a ton of retail and restaurants in Littleton. And, that's something that I never would have even considered or put on my list of things that are important to me. But it really is just something, again, that comes down to time and convenience and the ability just to not have to spend half an hour or an hour to get some of this stuff accomplished when your time is valuable. So that's one part of Littleton that I really enjoy. And then also just the beauty of Littleton. Since you are a little bit out of that congestion of Denver, you have a lot prettier views, in my opinion, of the Western Slope. In fact, this is the area that is probably my favorite when it comes to views because of all of the red rock formations. There's a few neighborhoods, few different areas, subdivisions within Littleton that are especially amazing when it comes to these red rock formations. Two of them would be the North Ranch at Ken Carroll and also Roxborough. I recently sold a home in North Ranch at Ken Carroll, and the more time I spent over there, I just fell in love with this part of town. There's tons of wildlife. We had bear walking down the street one day, deer in the front yard almost on a daily basis, hawks, cool different kinds of birds. We even had some bobcats. All kinds of wildlife. And this is still in an area that is within a 15-minute drive of, a lot of things, shopping, all that kind of stuff. So North Ranch at Ken Carroll is a little bit further than some of the other parts of Littleton that I've been talking about with the convenience factor, but still very doable and very easy access. So just this view of all the Red Rocks, I think, is amazing. You're also very close to Red Rocks Amphitheater, my favorite place to go in Denver, period. If you haven't been there before, get a concert on your bucket list and make sure you guys make a point to go there at least once and see a show there because it is amazing. Littleton is a little bit more expensive, and it has been that way. Traditionally over the last 20, 25 years, Littleton has always been on the upper end when it comes to home prices and just, all of the stuff that goes along with it. The expensive restaurants and types of shopping centers and which stores and restaurants and, different stores are in these shopping centers. All that stuff's a little bit more upscale in Littleton. However, I will say though, with a lot of this, a little bit nicer stuff, what that means also though, it's cleaner. There's not nearly as much debris and trash and all that kind of stuff that I've talked about with Westminster and some of these other areas that are more urban and closer into downtown Denver. And it's just, I think, again, such a beautiful part of Denver. If you live in Littleton, you're usually about a 15 to 20-minute drive south of downtown. You are still going to deal with some traffic if you're on Highway 85, which is also known as Santa Fe. I take this all the time, and you can hit days where it is a little bit backed up and might take you 25 minutes instead of 15, but still, I think compared to the northern side of Denver, you have much better chances of avoiding traffic on this side of town. One last thing on the traffic, if you are, in a career or a work type position where you have to commute for work and you have to go anywhere that's north of Denver, places like Thornton or Boulder even, Erie, Brighton, anywhere on the northern side of downtown Denver, I would just, recommend that before you, jump in and buy a place down on the southern side of town, try and do that commute a couple times at different times during the day and just see if that's something that you can handle because, there is a significant amount of time if you are going from all the way south in Littleton and needing to go all the way north in somewhere like Thornton or somewhere again north of town. That could easily be 45 minutes, or if you hit it on one of these rush hour times a day, easily could be an hour. So just be aware of that. All right, and then last but not least, my worst neighborhood, number 2, is just gonna be the actual city of Denver. So, Denver has a lot of different areas, and in fact, I just moved from Denver when I lived in Sloan's Lake, but this is kind of going off of my last comments on Westminster being a negative place in some respects. With Denver in general, you are going to be dealing with a lot more crime, just the cleanliness of the areas and just some level of just safety. And I never thought that I would be somebody that would feel, concerned or really have any sense of worrying when it came to my personal well-being and safety. But I just want to share one quick story with you. So I had a home in Sloan's Lake, one of the coolest parts of town, and I still definitely recommend checking out Sloan Lake if you haven't been there before. But I will also tell you the story that when I was getting ready to sell my house over there, I had taken everything out of the home. I had already moved into my new home down here in Littleton, and my home was vacant. I was preparing to sell it, and there was a period of time for about 2 weeks where I had the for sale sign in the front yard, and I just really hadn't been marketing the property too much yet, so it was just kind of sitting empty. And I came over there one day to just check on the place and prepare for an upcoming showing. Found, my window blinds were kind of disheveled. There was some trash on the ground. Started walking a little bit further into the house and realized that I had a squatter. Somebody had broken into my home, and they were, I think, going in there in the evenings and actually just having a party there. There were, all these like buckets in the basement where they were upside down. They were using them as chairs. I found all these different pieces of foil, which were drug paraphernalia in a couple of the bathrooms. And I even had my dryer, my washer and dryer. My dryer had actually been stolen from the laundry room. So they were bold enough to literally take a dryer out of my utility room, out my garage, and load it up in a truck and haul it out of there. So this is in a place where, homes around me were in the $1 to $1.5 to $2 million range, and this was still happening. So, Denver is getting hit hard right now when it comes to just, a lot of these type of challenges. And I want to just at least make a point and a story to tell you about how this is definitely an area that I feel is getting hit the most when it comes to that stuff. So Denver, again, though, has some incredible parts of town. Highlands, Sloan's Lake, Baker is a really cool area. Another really up-and-coming area is called Sunnyside. So there's a lot of great areas in Denver, but today I'm just going to put it in one of my 2 worst neighborhoods for 2024. Now, I also want to talk for a second about Denver, and another reason why I think it's not at the top of my list is just talking again from a real estate perspective on the cost of housing. So what you're going to be paying to buy a house in this part of town versus really the ability to see it appreciate. So I think with Denver and the Sloan Lake, Highlands, some of these areas that I keep talking about, they have so much popularity and just clout, so much just hype around these neighborhoods, and it's been like that for the last 10 years or so, that people are really paying a premium to get into these neighborhoods. And by paying that premium, you're really limiting your ability to see your house appreciate as much as you would buying in another area that might be a little bit earlier in that, that curve of growth. Like my first best neighborhood, which I said was Wheat Ridge. So, I do want to also point out that in Highlands and some of these areas, you're going to be paying top dollar, you're going to be competing against a lot of other buyers, and you're really going to be, limiting yourself to see that appreciation without really putting in a significant amount of time and just letting it appreciate over, 5-10 years. So if you're somebody that maybe is looking to buy a home and maybe don't see yourself being there for more than a couple years, maybe you have plans to start a family in a couple years, or you just want to just be there for a few and then maybe go more to the suburbs, I would just caution you to really do your homework and just make sure you're not overpaying just to be in this desirable part of town, because I've seen a lot of people really, pay more than they probably should have, and now they're just kind of stuck. If they want to sell, they might get, the break even, or they might even take a bit of a loss, especially right now with the interest rates being higher. So I just want to make sure you guys are all just keeping that into perspective when considering Denver as one of the neighborhoods you might want to buy. All right, so there you have it. Again, guys, 2 of my best and 2 of my worst neighborhoods for 2024 and going into 2025. I believe this will still be the case. So my best neighborhoods, again, were Wheat Ridge and Littleton, and the 2 that I put at the bottom of the barrel, Westminster and Denver. If you guys have any questions on any of these neighborhoods or really any other part of town, I would love the chance to connect with you. Once again, my phone number, my email, all that info is down below. I love setting up a 30-minute real estate strategy session. It's just a Zoom call where I can learn a little bit more about you, and I guarantee I can provide a few different ways I provide value to you. So would invite you to please hit that link. It's in the show notes down below, and schedule a call with me. Would love to learn a little bit more and hopefully build a friendship out of it. So guys, I love making videos like this, but make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button. Every week I put out new content just like this video today, and I want to make sure you're the first ones to receive it. But for now, I'm going to end it there. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to connecting with you next week on an all-new episode of Living in Denver. Bye.